Welcome everybody to the SoxProspects.com podcast, the web's number one source for information on the Boston Red Sox from top to bottom, from Fort Myers to Worcester, across the Pike to Fenway, and all stops in between. Thank you for listening. My name is Chris Hatfield, and I am the executive editor of Sox Prospects. I'm joined as always by our director of scouting, Ian Kundle. I don't have time for jokes today. There is too much to talk about. A lot happened this week. A lot is happening, Ian.
Yeah, it was a very busy winter meetings for the Red Sox and their
and other teams,
players from past seasons. And
thank you all for bearing with us. We are sorry for the delay. Under normal circumstances, we would have gotten a podcast out Wednesday night. Actually, under normal circumstances,
there would have been multiple episodes.
Maybe this is for the better.
Yeah,
we would have recorded an episode Wednesday night that would have been obsolete by the time it got produced and put out. And we then would have had to record another one. No, because we would have recorded right after Rule 5.
Yeah, and they had signed. Yeah, you're right.
And they had signed Martin and Yoshida
and
by
Jansen.
that point, and Jansen.
Yeah,
and
it looked
like they were going to sign Bogaerts.
Yeah, it was trending in a direction, at least based on the reports. Yeah.
So, and then we would have put that out that night, maybe. I would have endeavored to put that out, and then I would have gone to bed and been like, do I need to wake up and do another one? Actually, in normal circumstances, I would have had work the next day. The reason we're delayed, I should get to the point. I had a death in the family. I was at home with my family. Literally the night all this was breaking, it was like, write a eulogy for my grandmother or do a podcast. I hope you all understand why the podcast came in second there. We have a lot to catch up on. If you want to support the site, tell people about it, rate and review us, support us on patreon.com/SoxProspects, and send us emails at podcast@SoxProspects.com. Okay. Xander Bogaerts is a San Diego Padre, Ian. Let's start there. Should we do the timeline? Well, I guess we just did the timeline. Xander Bogaerts is a San Diego Padre. He signed for 11 years, $280 million. Where do you want to
insane contract?
Where do you want to start? I don't even know where to start on the top story. Never mind which story.
Well, I think it's interesting that let's work. I think we work backwards because I haven't seen that many people, like even the most diehard Red Sox and Bogaerts fans, be like they should have matched that contract. I think everyone realizes that it's just an absolutely outrageous contract that they shouldn't have matched.
I have seen people tweet at me, and this point is not wrong. I also don't think that it's relevant. That 27 million AAV or whatever it works out to is not crazy for Bogaerts. The statement is true.
No, the AAV is fine.
The AAV is fine. The problem is that, I liked the point you made before we recorded, so why don't you make it about that?
It's not an 11-year deal. They're paying, it's like a 7-year deal that they're tacked on 4 more years to lower the AAV.
Right.
You're not banking on those last 3 or 4 years being that much production because Bogaerts is going to be 37, 38 by the time it reaches that.
If it's an 8-year, if you consider it a $280 million for 8-year deal, it's $35 million AAV.
Yeah, and I wouldn't have interest at that price either.
None.
So it's
no. I didn't know if I had interest in him at $200 million.
I think my number was 180. I would have gone 6 years was my max. You could have talked me into 7.
Mm-hmm.
And 180 was the number. And I don't think
180 over 7 would have been 25 per.
Yeah. And clearly the Red Sox didn't even value him at that number. It seems
180 over 6 is 30 million a year. 186 is probably where I would have gone to.
Because I think Alex Spear said it that their best offer was 160 million or something.
But they might have gone up from there. The report was that they might have gone up from it, but there was so much of a delta that there was no point.
Yeah. Right.
And it sounds like, so the initial reports were that Bogaerts was looking at offers from he had apparently offers over 200 million from multiple teams, which
3.
I question.
I mean, I'll just say it, a lot of the stuff, and as we've now learned, from, the Chris Cotillo's great interview with Chaim Bloom, a lot of stuff coming out about the Bogaerts negotiations was coming from one side, and you can probably guess which side it was, and it had one purpose, and it was to make it seem like there was more interest than there might have actually been.
Well, so what happened, part of the reason, in the days prior to Wednesday, you just, and Jared Carabas had the gimmick going where he had the list and he was crossing out teams poorly.
Yeah, the Padres were apparently out of it.
Right. But which just goes to show you how much these reports are worth. And that's why I never pay a whole lot of attention to them. But like, it was clear a lot of the teams that were reportedly in on him weren't.
Yeah, I mean, they
didn't actually have it. Like the Diamondbacks. Like, give me a break on the Diamondbacks.
Or who was the other one? Seattle. Like Seattle wasn't getting a shortstop. They just traded for Colton Wong and like JP Crawford
They have JP Crawford,
elite defensive shortstop. Like,
yeah,
they weren't going to go out and get him.
So that's where we're starting. Anyway. So the market's dwindling, but like I'm skeptical on that. Like 4 teams were over 200 million. At any rate, like I get teams really liked him, but like the way it made it sounded at first like he didn't want to go back to the Red Sox because there was such a delta between the Padres offer and the Red Sox offer, which would be logical given what the Padres gave him. But then Bloom to Chris Cotillo said that like he's basically said like, look, it got clear to a point that we just couldn't stay in the market, and it'd be like the incredible Julian McWilliams story because McWilliams was in the Delta Sky Lounge with Bloom waiting for the same flight back from the winter meetings. Like, which kudos to Julian McWilliams for being Johnny on the spot and capitalizing with an unreal article of Bloom just being clearly shell-shocked that he was gone. It made it seem like he had just found out, which I don't think McWilliams was trying to.
No, because I think that would be the reaction, like, because it's finally real at that point.
Right,
like,
exactly.
You like, they could have known that he was likely to leave, but until it actually happens, then it's still like maybe you're holding out hope. Like, you never know.
Yeah. But like, Bloom tells Cotillo, like, yeah, we knew like days before or a day before.
On Wednesday, like John Heyman tweeted and said they were like
close. Everyone's tweeting that he's close.
John Morosi did, like a bunch of the MLB insiders did. No, I think McAdam did.
Oh, McAdam did. Okay. Yeah, that's right.
Like a bunch of like the insiders were tweeting it. And like, these are people who like obviously break stories and have good sources. And that doesn't even get into the people who don't have any sources who were just piggybacking off those tweets.
Right.
And
like, hopefully citing them. But at any rate, that's a separate thing.
But like, it reached the point where like, I feel like there was optimism. And I think that's maybe what stung the most was it went from optimism to, and shout out this dude who was at the Celtics Suns game who like casually walked up to Bogaerts and asked him, and Bogaerts if he was re-signing with Boston. Bogaerts was just like, no. And I thought like when I saw that tweet, I was like, oh, he obviously doesn't know.
What is this?
Did you not know about this?
No.
Oh, so there's
maybe I knew about it and forgot. I've had a long.
So there's like some random dude on Twitter was at the Celtics Suns game, and Bogaerts was at the game, and he saw him like in the hallway, and he asked him if he could take a picture, and Bogaerts was like, hold on, let me finish a phone call. Did the phone call and then took the picture. And then as he was walking away, the kid like asked Bogaerts, he was like, hey, are you re-signing with the Red Sox? And he said no. And then like an hour later, the Heyman report came out.
Oh, and I did see that tweet. You're right.
So like I thought when I saw that video, that photo posted, and like the kid posted it, I was because it got tweeted at like a bunch of the big Red Sox accounts. Like I think like Steve probably Carabas, a bunch of people. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess like maybe he was kidding. Like I just thought it was like, oh, that's interesting. Like that doesn't really because it was the first thing we had that went against anything we had seen from earlier in the day. But I was like, it's just like who knows? Like maybe he said it in jest. And then literally like minutes later, it's like, no, he's going to the Padres. And it's like, oh wow, he was dead serious. So this kid was literally the first person to find it out.
Break it. That's crazy.
Yeah. And so I mean, I just think it was a weird day, and I think it kind of wraps up just what has been a very, I think, contentious kind of saga with the Bogaerts contract that
contentious, I would say, in public. I don't think it's contentious necessarily between him and the team.
I think between the fans and then how they view like front office ownership, depending on how you want to break down the blame chart. But like to him not being here for the rest of his career, I think is basically the contention.
So, fallout, I like working backwards. So let's maybe start here. To have a franchise player such as Bogaerts leave and to have only gotten a 4th round pick in return is a bad beat.
Yeah, I mean,
for a number of reasons.
We said it at the time. I don't get why they
you more than me.
The luxury talk.
You more than me.
Tax.
I will admit that.
I think I said, didn't I say like I would have traded JD Martinez for nothing to get under it? I'm pretty sure I said basically that.
Yes.
I don't get it, and I understand it. I mean, I'm guessing it seemed like they wanted to make one more go at it because maybe if they make the playoffs, Bogaerts is more likely to re-sign, like things like that. But that team,
Well, I mean, it's that team was with Nady Eovaldi had just come back and they thought they were getting Chris Sale back, and that's the point I made at the time.
Yeah,
they're like those are your trade quote unquote trade.
And I think my case was like I don't think JD being there makes any difference to how good this team is going to be, because like he wasn't very good last year, and I think there's a reason he's still unsigned, even though he doesn't even have the QO attached to him.
And they showed that they were willing to half and half it when they moved Vasquez.
Yeah,
that's the part that the more I think about it
is the weird. If they had kept all of them, yeah.
If they had kept Vasquez, it's like, okay, they're keeping everyone together, but they had shown they were willing to make a deal.
It's like you open the door, but
for the future
didn't actually go out of it.
I think I mean, because didn't we also figure out that the three options were trade Martinez, trade Eovaldi, don't trade for Pham? Wasn't that one of the third one that put them over as well?
No, because Pham wasn't enough, because it was like $6 million, and his contract was only like $9 million.
I thought there was a third thing they could have done, but I forget. At any rate, they could have gotten under, and JD Martinez is kind of the obvious thing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But like not getting under, like it just sucks now, because if they were under, they get, I think it's a second round pick.
If they were under, they get, I think it's almost like a sup pick, but it's a difference of like a difference of like 70 picks or something.
But which is, I mean, and
huge.
The picks
and the money.
The money is the important thing to me. It's the difference of, let's say after the fourth round, you're looking at like a pick in like the 135, 140 range. So you're talking like $420,000 bonus pool. Pick after the second round is double that, 820,000, 840,000. Like,
and worse.
Talking,
yeah. Go ahead.
And then it also is like to carry on. Obviously, they haven't done this yet, which I think is clearly part of the strategy, but they haven't signed a QO free agent yet. And I don't think they will.
I don't think they will.
Why we'll get to later. Why I don't think they're going to go after Dansby Swanson.
Yeah.
But if they had signed a QO free agent, like that's a second and a fifth instead of I think it's a fourth. So it's like it's a big difference there too.
No, I think it's a second.
Third.
It's
a second. Just a second.
It's a second. It adds the fifth, and it doubles the IFA money.
Okay, but anyway, like. You're giving up a substantial amount.
Let me double check that, but yeah.
But for a team like the Red Sox that's still in the process of rebuilding their farm, like losing a second, a fifth, and $1 million international money is not nothing. Like,
yeah,
that's, I mean, a second round pick alone is 1 point. Last year, picking at 41, which was not their actual pick, so that's not a good. Well, I guess they're going to be picking earlier this year, but let's say a pick in the 60s is like $1.2 million of cap of bonus pool, $1.5 million. Like it's, I don't exactly know what the pool number is going to be this year, but like it's it's $1 million plus of bonus pool money that's gone, plus a fifth round pick is another $300K. Like,
yeah, I was right, by the way. You just add the fifth, yeah.
But you
and
lose
it's a
those
third it's a third if you receive revenue sharing. Sorry, go ahead.
Got it. Losing those two picks is like 25% of your bonus pool gone right there.
Yeah,
and like. That's a lot in the modern draft system.
Especially where you right now have in your baseball, lowercase b, lowercase o baseball operations, your amateur scouting department is one of your strengths.
Yes.
In this team.
Yeah, the drafts have been very
There's
good
a reason Paul Taboni just got a promotion.
Yeah.
They've killed it the last few years.
Yeah.
Under difficult circumstances too, with COVID.
Yep.
Between that and IFA, like those are two of their stronger operations right now. And maybe I think that's that's something I think, Ian, maybe in the future we can talk about, just kind of breaking down like where this organization is at, because I think we've kind of been, thinking more and more about like, what is this organization? What are their strengths and weaknesses right now?
Yeah.
And I think that's going to make an interesting episode that we should do separately. I thought we would talk about it maybe with this, but that's its own episode.
Off-season episode.
That's its own
when
episode.
Nothing's going on. Yeah.
So,
but yeah, but taking back to Bogaerts, so they get a fourth round pick for him, which goes back to like, should they have traded him at the deadline now? Like you would have gotten more than a fourth round pick worth of value.
He had a no trade.
Did he?
I mean, they told him they weren't going to trade him.
Well, that's the thing is they told him they weren't going to trade him. But like,
right.
I just look back at like Javi Baez, and I think it's a similar situation. Obviously, Baez has really taken a downturn since.
Yeah.
But when he was traded to the Mets, they got Pete Crow Armstrong back, who's a top 30. He's now who at the time was like a top 100 prospect, I believe. Like
he was like a borderline top 100
and now
prospect
he's
when they got him, and now
into
he's
like a
top 50 easy.
Top 50 guy. But yeah, like that's the type of player they added, which Pete Crow Armstrong was a first round pick. the year before, I believe, or 2 years before that. So like, they missed out on a significant asset by not trading him or re-signing him and being over the tax. And like, yeah, he's 34th on Fangraphs list now.
It's a worst case outcome. Which you running some risk of that is fine. But you run when that's what happens, then you're screwed up.
Well, and I think, and this is the part I think a lot of people want to hear is like, how did this happen?
Yep. And so let's keep working backwards.
And I think that, to me,
go ahead with your point. I know where you're going.
It's easy to blame, it's easy to blame the offer they made in spring training, and whether it's 90 million or 120 million.
Well, can we unpack that real quick?
Yeah.
Let's unpack that.
I think it matters. It does matter which one it is, but yeah.
So the original report is basically that their extension offer to him in spring training was to essentially, in exchange for not exercising your opt-out, we're going to tack on an extra year at 30 million.
Yeah.
So it's like 4 years, 90 million. Yeah. If that's true, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Horrific offer. Yeah.
It's horrific. And they deserve every bit of blame for not, like, if it's true what Alex Spear reported that Bogaerts would have accepted the Trevor Story contract, to me, missed opportunity.
Yeah, I probably would have done that at the time.
I would have absolutely done
6
that.
years.
At the time.
What was 140?
I
think
I gotta find that article. Alex Spear.
I think the Story contract was 140.
Xander Bogaerts, or something along the lines of what Bogaerts got, or what Story got. Sorry. Yeah, here we go. Why Xander Bogaerts chose to sign with the Padres over the Red Sox.
Yeah, 140 was the Story deal. So.
Okay, so if that's all it would have taken, like, that's a miss. IMO.
I probably would have done that. Yeah,
I would have definitely done that. Just given, like, Bogaerts is, let's see, Story. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. 140. Yeah. So just a source suggested that he would have been open to a new deal that was in the range of what Story received. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, if it was exactly
5 year. But here's the thing: the 5 year, 150 million extension that Jose Altuve had landed several years earlier likewise represented a framework that Bogaerts would have welcomed. That's
a wide range.
That's a wide range.
I mean, it's the difference of like 8 million a year in AAV.
So now that I reread this, like, what does "in the range of what Story received" mean? Because 5 years at 30 million is different than 6 years at 20.
Was it 23, 24?
23 and change.
Yeah.
That's a big delta.
Yeah.
That said, like we just said, we would have done 6,180 now, or 6,160 now, right? If we would have done that now, if we're saying that would have been enough in the spring and you didn't offer him that, that's a huge swing and a miss.
I mean, it is in our opinions, but I think, and this is what we don't know, is what do they value him internally at contract-wise?
Well, they reportedly offered him that. That's the thing.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
If that's where they were now, why weren't you there in the spring? If he's that much of a priority, why not?
That's a reasonable,
and I think, offer in the spring.
And I think that's the most reasonable complaint, is that if the offer now was whatever it was, 160, why wasn't that same offer made in the spring? Especially since it seems like he would accept it. And if that's the case, I think that is definitely something you can critique the front office or criticize the front office for.
Right. Like, did this year really convince you of something?
Yeah.
Right. Like, so, like, we've talked about the defense, about how, like, it was his best defensive year ever, or not, maybe not ever, but best defensive year in recent history. But a lot of that is from how he did on the second base side of the bag.
Yeah. It was all. He was negative DRS at every other position. It was the only position he got his entire defensive WAR, or his entire, like, defensive outs above average, all that stuff came from when he was playing that little sliver between second base to the left of second base in the shift.
Yep.
And that is I maintain that that's a serious. This was his best defensive season by Fangraphs WAR since 2015.
Yep.
And it was his best season of base running WAR since 2017. And to me, that was the concern I had. Is like the power disappeared this year. He dropped from 23 to 15 home runs. His batted ball profile was a lot of ground ball hits, like his XBA and all that stuff was much lower than normal. His BABIP was the highest it's been since 2015 at 362, up 30 points from last year. His ISO dropped from 198 to 149. Like, there were a lot of red flags with his profile. And, like, even if you take those out, like, he still could be like a 3 to 4 win player the next couple of years, and that contract's worth it. like the one we were talking about.
Which is to say, if you're offering him this contract now, nothing happened this year that would make you offer him more now.
Exactly.
Right.
And
exactly.
That is confusing to me. But I think though that it was something that I feel like has not been covered enough is why are they in this point in the first place? Because I don't like comparing this to the Betts situation because I think they're completely different.
Can I interrupt?
And yeah.
We never talked about the Heyman tweet.
What?
We never talked about like the reason we're talking about the offer in the spring, because the other thing that John Heyman tweeted was that, I don't know if you still have this up, Ian. He tweeted that the Red Sox best offer to Bogaerts in the spring was for $120 million. Just dropped that into a tweet.
Yeah,
it's the only place I've seen this.
Yeah, he said it was $150 million less than the Padres won at around $120 million now.
Which we don't know years. Left. We don't know what else, any other context. So maybe there was a better offer made. I don't know. And so that's why we said it depends on what happened in the spring.
Because I do think like if he turned down $120 as an extension from them, I don't think that's an insulting offer or like a terrible offer like the $490 was. Because that's $30 million AAV a year. Like $30 million is
if 150 is in the ballpark, like they were there with one less year.
Exactly.
Like,
and I understand why he would prioritize the years now, because obviously, like given his age, you want to lock up as much.
He's 30, and I get why he at least wants to go through 35 or 36.
Yeah,
right. Like I get that. That makes perfect sense. But it's like that's not an insulting offer.
No. Whereas I understand.
Should you have gone up a little bit more? Probably. But yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to keep cutting you off.
No, that's fine. And I think that is like it's hard to say without and I will never know what the exact offer was in the spring, but. I think that if it does make a difference, in my opinion, if it's 90 or 120 in terms of framing it as like, because like if he wanted 150 and they were at 120, that's just a different, like, as you said, that's a difference of 1 year. That's not as big as like that, that's not like,
but that said,
a big whiff. But the fact that they wouldn't go to the 50 year is interesting. Like,
well, and again, this is all hypothetical.
Yeah.
But to me, if you're that close, then get it done.
Right.
Is kind of the other argument you can make. Like if you're making a reasonable offer and he's saying no, right? So where we were on the Mookie thing prior to COVID and him signing the extension with the Dodgers, right? If Mookie is insisting on $400 million, I get why you're not there.
Yeah.
Or 300, not 400, but you know what I mean? Same
Whatever
difference.
It was, yeah.
If the player is insisting on not going below a number that you're not going to approach, you're too far apart, and I get it. And it's like, I've been saying the whole time, I think what they were going to do is let Bogaerts get to free agency. And I think that they did misread, this is the other thing from Alex Spear's article. I think they did misread his market.
Well, I think everyone has misread the free agent market this year.
Oh, no question.
Money is flying around.
Player-friendly market because there's no labor strife. No. Teams have money. They just sold the rest of BAM Tech or whatever MLB Advanced Media is now.
Yeah.
Like the teams are flush.
And I also think we're seeing there's kind of a divide in how teams are being run these days. And you have these kind of old school GMs and owners who are just like, we will spend whatever it takes to win. And we don't really care. Like we want stars. Mm-hmm. And then you have the more like analytically inclined teams who are like, or, this is not a, like an but like you have the analytically inclined teams. And then you also have some teams that are more budget conscious that are just like, we're not comfortable spending to those levels. And I think what we're seeing is that, like, obviously the teams that are getting people are the ones that are willing to overpay. Like, I think if you told me going into the season, like that Aaron Judge what is Judge's contract? Like $40 million a year?
360. Yeah.
9 million. Like that's a ton. Like he bet on himself and he bet correctly. Or you look at Trey Turner, 11,300. Like I would have thought if like Correa got that deal, it would have been like, yeah, that makes sense. Like for Turner to get it. And then Bogaerts got 11,280. And then Brandon Nimmo got 8,170 or 8,168. Like, they're just blowing away the Fangraphs projections.
Well, part of that is because the Mets like are on their own island now.
Yeah, they just don't care. They don't care about the luxury tax at all.
They really don't care about the luxury tax at all. I mean, look, like I'll say it right now, I'm happy the Yankees signed Judge to that contract if I'm a Red Sox fan.
Well, but in the end, ironically, him not going to San Diego might have cost the Red Sox or at least a chance at Bogaerts, a better chance.
And that's the other thing about locking a guy up. If he's your priority, get it done before the Padres pivot.
Yeah.
Maybe they didn't have that opportunity, and maybe we'll find out about that. But like, if he's your priority, like make him feel like he's your priority.
Well, but I think and based on their offers, I think he was a priority at like a price they were comfortable at. And as soon as it got above that, they knew they were out. And like, I don't think
a level far above what they were comfortable
and
at.
The thing
I think that's what
like,
we've seen with the Cotillo interview.
And the thing to me is, I don't think it's disingenuous to say he's a priority, but not offer more than like 160 million or whatever to him. Like, I think those two things can like fit together in the sense that like we 100% want him back, and we will offer straight up to the point that we're comfortable with. But as soon as we gets above that, we just can't do it. Like, you can want him and make him your first priority by offering that much. Like, I understand it might not get him, but like, I don't think I don't think they were straight up like not. I don't think it was them like putting up a smoke screen that we didn't actually really want him, but we had to act like we did or anything like that. I think they genuinely did want him. They just they had a number that they were stricken to, and
I don't know that it was even a number. I think it's just
a range.
I think it got so far out of where they were comfortable that that's what made them get out.
Yeah.
Right. 280 is different. Like, it's not like it went to 185.
It wasn't like he signed for
and they didn't want to go
something.
above 180.
Yeah. Or it wasn't like he signed for 210 or whatever those other
or one extra year
offers, which were Yeah.
So like, again, like, no one is saying they should have given him 11,280. The question is how we got here. And you had another point you wanted to make. I want to make sure you make it.
Yeah, no, and I think, and we kind of talked about it, just the spring offers, and they definitely made a mistake there with the way that was. Yeah, but the only reason this was the place, and this is why I think this is a big difference than the Betts situation, is they did sign Bogaerts to an extension before. It wasn't this regime; it was Dave Dombrowski. But unlike Betts, who they obviously never extended, Bogaerts signed a 6-year extension, which at the time he was 27 years old, or it took him through his age 33 or 34 season.
30, and well, with the option, I think the option was for 25.
Yeah,
I think
he signed it in. It would cover 2021, 22, 23, 24, 25, and then 26 was the option year.
Okay.
So it would have taken him through 35, 36 years old.
Yeah.
Like, that was the perfect extension in terms of length. The 6-year deal with a vesting option or whatever it was for the 7th year. And they put an opt-out in. And Dave Dombrowski gave him an opt-out. And
he loved doing that. He did it.
I don't understand. Like, that is, if he doesn't have an opt-out, this isn't even a question. He's here for 3 more years and probably 4. And the Red Sox, get the best of his career. And then maybe they sign him to like a deal to DH for 3 years after that. Like, this all could have been avoided if there was no opt-out in that contract. And I understand that, everyone was praising it as like a super team-friendly deal, but in hindsight, it hurt them. Like, if that contract is, 23, 24 million, maybe Boris doesn't demand the opt-out. Or, like, the decision to give him an opt-out, which I don't understand at all, frankly. It ended up costing them big time, because that was the only reason he was available this offseason. And so I think that, while you definitely can criticize what happened in this offseason with the negotiations, why they didn't try to approach him to extend it even before then, like, yeah, it wouldn't have got to this point if there's no opt-out. And so I just would love to know the rationale between being willing to give that, or frankly not being willing to, bump it up a little more AAV at the time. Because at the time, 20 million a year was seen as a very team-friendly deal.
So let's go back, because he signed it in April of 2019.
Yeah.
And then played 2019 on his 1-year ARB contract to help with the AAV. At that point, he had come off of 4 seasons of between 3 and 4.5 Fangraphs WAR. So, for that range, he's 16 WAR, Fangraphs WAR over the prior 4 seasons, in which he, on average, had a 295 average, 354 on base, 446 slugging, couple of years with 20 bombs, okay-ish defense, like better defense than we saw in 19, 20, and 20, right? So like, I absolutely would have gone to 25 to get rid of the opt-out.
I would have too.
Easy to say in hindsight. I get that. I mean, I'm not trying to like, and we're going to get, your Bloom homers, and you're just trying to blame Dombrowski. No, I mean, that's why I wanted to make it a point. We're not saying Bloom is not to blame at all here, / the current front office, which is multiple people.
And ownership too.
And ownership. Yeah, absolutely.
Like, there's a lot of blame to go around here, but I think that like this is something that does need to be brought up, because like, they had him, the length was perfect. They would have had him covered for 3 more years. And if you told me you could have Xander Bogaerts from his age 27 or 28 through his age 35 seasons, perfect.
I'll throw on another year.
Yeah. Like, and that just this opt out just threw a huge wrench into things, and now he's not here anymore.
It's a heck of a what if, because if you got Bogaerts under control when Bloom takes over, it'd be interesting to think about how things play out differently.
No, it's fair, and I think though that it's the Bogaerts thing. Like it's definitely the fan reaction has been very swift and stern about it, and
it's one way to put it.
Yeah, well, no, and
it's one way to put it.
I do recognize there's an attachment, and I think that it's tough because it's the way baseball is a business, and I think Bloom said this a lot in his article, is like, or in the interview
Cotillo's interview with him,
is like it's hard you can't operate it like from his perspective. You can't operate it as if you're a fan, because that's how you make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like that's I think the hardest thing with all of these moves and everything is separating like what is a good baseball move versus like what is a good move like a good fan move. And I think obviously like everyone would have loved to see Bogaerts finish his career with the Red Sox. Like I don't think that's like a hot take or anything. Yeah.
No. Yeah.
But as we're seeing, like this is just the way the game is going. Like guys move around. Like, and if he can go get more money, like good on him. Like obviously, and I don't think anyone's begrudging him for doing that. I think everyone's ecstatic for him that he was able to get that type of contract at a place, like San Diego. Plus, living in San Diego sounds awesome, especially on a day like today when it was 36 degrees and like freezing rain all day / snow.
Right.
But it's just like the business of, I think it takes back, and just like sometimes we forget it, like as fans forget that like it is at the end of the day, like, they are running a business there. And I don't think anyone wants to hear that, but I think this is just, it comes down to like, at the end of the day, this was, the business decision. They had a certain value for him. And once it got above that, it wasn't going to happen. And it's not fun to hear that, but that's just how it is. Like,
so I think it turns to Ian. This isn't unmitigated disaster yet.
No,
it's going to depend on what the team.
Where do they go from there?
It's going to depend on what the team looks like on opening day, and I'm not necessarily pivoting to the guys they have signed or at least reached agreements with. But just as terms of like, look, if we get to opening day with Trevor Story at short and Christian Arroyo at second, disaster to me. That's not an okay scenario personally. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something here. Maybe it depends on who else they acquire. I think you can fix it immediately by going to get Carlos Correa. I don't think they're going to do that personally. I don't think there's any chance they go sign Correa. Based on what we've seen from them so far.
No, they haven't been linked with Correa at all. And
they haven't been linked with him.
Correa is going to take more than Turner.
What he's going to get now.
So Turner got 11,300. So that's your baseline. Like he's probably going to want that, similar to maybe the Bryce Harper deal, 13,360, something like that.
He's going to want an insane contract. And I don't think the Red Sox are going to give it to him.
And I understand you don't want to like prepare for prospects or anything, but the reason like Bogaerts made so much sense was because he could play shortstop for 3 more years, and then you slowly transition him off the position as Marcelo Meyer gets ready. With a guy like Correa,
think Marcelo Meyer is going to, if Marcelo Meyer pans out the way you hope he does,
right? Exactly.
He's not going to need 3 years.
Well, no. Okay. So 2 years even.
2 years, I think.
My point is that Correa does not fit this at all, because Correa is a shortstop. He's 28. He's younger.
Well,
like you're not moving Correa off of short. Like, so
I don't know that I necessarily agree with that. I reread the Mike Petriello article that had the one we talked about before, looking at the 4 big shortstops who are available this offseason. And some of the metrics this year, he's definitely a no question shortstop in the near term. I don't think it's a guarantee he's a 10-year shortstop. I just don't. I don't think it's a guarantee he's a 5-year shortstop. That said, it's not like Bogaerts where it's like, look, this guy's not a shortstop in 3 years.
Yeah.
It's different.
Like, frankly,
I'm with you that it's different.
Like, Bogaerts' defense next year is going to be fascinating to watch, especially considering the Padres have 2 better defensive shortstops on the roster that aren't going to be playing there.
That's weird.
Kim and Cronenworth.
Oh, Cronenworth.
No, Cronenworth, not even Tatis. We're not taking Tatis into account here. But
and maybe Machado, frankly.
Well, no, Machado definitely.
Machado's a better shortstop.
Right. So it's just like it's interesting that how they're going to do. And I get why they're doing it. Obviously, like, Boris, I don't think he would have signed there if he wasn't being allowed to play shortstop.
Well, and it's, I think they think, yeah, anyway, go ahead. Make your point.
But, yeah, no. So I don't, Correa just, I don't see it.
I think there's the Padres, I think, are setting up for Machado opting out and
Soto leaving in 2 years
and having a conversation with Bogaerts about like, hey, look, we love you here. You love San Diego now that you're here. Like, we're a better team with you at third.
Well, no, because I don't think Machado would go back to short, though, would he?
Machado would be gone, and you move.
Oh, I was saying,
you move Bogaerts to third.
And you move Bogaerts to third, and move.
The plan is not to keep Tatis, Soto, Machado, Bogaerts together for the long term.
That was what I think. Like pretty much everyone is saying. Like Dennis, like the Padres reporters were tweeting it.
Dennis Lin from the Athletic. Yeah. So that's clearly the plan, and it's like, look, I get that they're saying you could be a shortstop now, but now once you've got him locked up for 11 years, hey, look, do you want to win? Do you want to win?
It's a lot easier to get him to change positions when he's locked up.
But he's locked up, and it's like, look, you don't have to worry about your value going forward. Like, go play third. We've got, two guys that can play tremendous defensive shortstop. You're still super valuable at third. You've got a no trade.
Mm-hmm. But
anyway,
sorry, but anyway, getting back to Correa, to me, it just doesn't seem like a natural fit there. And
in what sense?
No, just in the sense of the money. I just don't.
Oh, the money. The money's the only thing that isn't a fit. Everything else, I think, is perfect. Yeah, I mean, I'm not as, like I said, I'm not as big on the he's a shortstop thing as you, but I think the money's the big thing.
Yeah, which
is a weird thing to say with the Boston Red Sox.
But I just don't see them going to like 360 or even above 300 for someone like him. And maybe I'm wrong. And if I'm wrong, I'll eat crow because but I just.
Yeah, and everyone they've signed, they haven't been linked to. So the fact that they haven't been linked to Correa doesn't mean anything. Like they weren't linked to Jansen, they weren't linked to Martin, they weren't linked to Yoshida. To Yoshida.
But so I mean, we'll see what happens with it. And I think the Correa market too is there's like several teams with a ton of money to spend that missed out on their top guys. Like the Giants missed out on Judge. They were offering him, close to 400 million or whatever. Like there's
they've got a bag.
Yeah, they've got a ton to offer. Obviously, the Twins would like to get him back. The Cubs seem very trying to make a statement signing.
Yep.
So he's another Boris guy. So we'll see. And then I think the other option, obviously the other high end shortstop unsigned is Dansby Swanson,
who they've been linked to, which feels to me like that is not coming from the team side. Maybe it is coming from the team side to try and save face, but if you're not going to be in on him, that'd be crazy to put out that you're in on him.
Well, and the thing is, with how this free agent market is going, like I would assume he's going to end up getting like 160 million, something like that, 150 million
more.
And
if Bogaerts just got 280.
Well, right, but and then the thing come to me is that okay, so if you're willing to sign him for 160, you're basically saying like you value him the same as Xander Bogaerts. And that to me is just weird. And I just think the combination of like his strikeout rate, definitely there's obviously concerns. He had a career year and a walk year, which is never a good sign.
Yep.
Yep. Obviously the compensation attached to him. I don't see that as a good fit. And I think that plus when you're signing someone like him, if you're signing someone like him, and if the goal is to stay under the luxury tax this year, which we don't know, it seems like I
don't think it is. I think they're fine going over. I don't think they want to go a ton over.
I would agree with you, but I think
if you went over this past year, put it this way: if you went over this past year, I don't think it's a bar going forward.
No,
for this.
But like I think there are ways to get another middle infielder that's not one of these two and divert the monetary resources towards other positions where
starting pitcher.
Yeah. And I think that just in terms of how you can make your team better, it seems like the way this team is going to have to be built for next year is like, and we'll get to in a second, they've really beefed up the bullpen. Like I really am comfortable with how the bullpen is laying out right now. I think there's defined roles. I think it's deep.
I think they're done there unless something falls into their lap. They're done with the bullpen.
It seems like they want another starter, like a high end, like one of the higher end starters potentially. And so if you're adding another starter to that mix, I like where the pitching is going. And I think that if you want to choose, you can, try to go like, and this is where the Yoshida signing fits in, is go a more like OBP contact oriented pitching and defense team. And like, we've seen that work before. Like
where Devers is your thumper in the middle.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that's why I just think that the shortstop market to me is I might, explore it in trades. Like maybe you call the White Sox and see if they would move Tim Anderson, like things like that you do. But I don't see Correa or Swanson as of now as
I don't
being
want to
great
give
fits.
up the picks and the IFA money and what Swanson's going to cost.
Exactly. And
in
like,
a vacuum, Swanson, cool, fine.
And the thing is, like, Correa doesn't have any of those attached, which is why he's appealing.
It's why he's
he's going to be, it's why he's appealing to other teams. That's the exact same reason.
Right.
And like why he's going to get so much money. Well, not why, but like, when you add that in, I think you can bump his, the offer up a little bit because, he doesn't have that compensation attached to him. So, I think that it's going to be, I don't know what they're going to do at shortstop. And I think that that's what makes it hard to evaluate the whole shortstop situation is, or middle infield, I guess we should say, because they could move Story back, is we just aren't going to know until, the off season's over, what it's going to look like. And I think this is something that we'll probably be talking about for pretty much every episode the rest of the off season, unless they do go out and trade for someone like noteworthy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
it's making me want to check Twitter right now to make sure we're not missing something that's happening.
It's definitely in flux right now, but I think that, and it just kind of sucks that the whole Bogart and trying to transition a little bit, that the whole Bogart situation signing happened on a day where I think that they actually went out and did stuff and made their team better. They made the team better. And I think, people were happy with the moves they made. It was trending in the right direction. Even if, you can quibble about the money, but like at the end of the day, it's not our money. Like, do we really, like it maybe they overpaid Kenley Jansen a little bit, but it doesn't seem like it because they said he chose the Red Sox over offers from similar offers from several other teams. And with Yoshida, like obviously there was the Kylie McDaniel piece, which had a weird headline. The headline really like crushed it, but it wasn't actually, if you read the article, it wasn't as bad as that. Like the headline was very misleading in my opinion, but obviously maybe they spent a little extra there, but I see him being like exactly what they're trying to get.
Who again?
Yoshida.
Okay. Yep.
Just that, maybe they spent a little more than they needed to there, but they locked him up. And like, if they believe in their process with him, like I'm very for, if you have strong opinions on a player and you want to go out and secure him, go get him.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like what they did in the draft. Like if you have a strong conviction about someone, like you think Nick York is, a high-end player in the draft and you have the 17th pick, even though if he's not on there at anyone else's board, doesn't mean you're wrong when you take him there.
Yeah.
So
I mean, look, Yoshida at that price has to be what, like a 2-3 war guy, and that pays for it.
It has to be Alex Verdugo last year.
Yeah.
Which I think.
Well, maybe not last year. Last year, Verdugo had the half year where he was horrible because he was snake bitten as hell. But like,
Verdugo last year was 1.2 war. Okay, the year before. So he has to be the year before. He has to be like,
like that's what I said. Like if he's a 2-3 war guy, like that's all you need out of him.
Well, you need.
I am a little concerned about the transition over. I'm a little concerned about how it looks defensively, but like you've said, maybe he DHs.
I think he'll. Yeah, I think he'll DH a little bit. And that's why it's hard to say. But I'm not going to like complain about or be concerned about the defense until I see what the roster looks like. Like it's hard, they needed an outfielder, a DH. They need an outfielder, a DH, and a middle
left-handed hitter.
Yeah, they need. But in terms, and they got one of. He's either a DH or an outfielder. I don't know which one, or if he's going to play a little of both. But I think he can fit either role, and it just kind of like it gives them some flexibility going forward for what they want to target.
5'8", 176 DH just sounds so weird.
Who cares?
No, it's just weird. Like, I'm just making a comment separate and apart from anything. It's just it's a weird fit, but whatever. It doesn't really matter.
I mean, but I just think when I look at him, and again, like as we've talked about, and just nothing comes out of their front office. Like he wasn't linked to them at all. There was nothing on it.
Well, he had just gotten posted.
He got posted and he was signed the next day. And
he'd just been posted. Like they went out and grabbed him.
Yeah.
And they got to pay a posting fee of like $15 million that doesn't count towards the luxury tax.
Yeah. But I think just on a skills-based level solely, just taking out the contract and everything, he's exactly what they needed. Like the team got away from it last year. They had a lot of guys who just didn't make a lot of contact, low on base guys. And they really needed someone who is a great approach, bat to ball skills, like puts the ball in play, takes walks, left-handed, obviously, which they needed. It can hit at the top of the lineup. If he's proves to transition comfortably to stateside pitching, And yeah, I think that on like just on a skills level, it's a really nice fit. And assuming the transition is like, obviously it's not going to be as good as he was in the NPB last year when he hit like 336, 449, 559.
Or just in his whole career. I mean, he's a routine 300, 400, 500 guy.
But like, if you look at his Zips projections, if he comes close to that, it's like an incredible outcome, like for them. He Zips loves him, like the Fangraphs like
projection
thing.
That's Jay Jaffe, right? Or is that
no?
That's
no, it's
I forget
someone else.
No, that's God. Why am I? Anyway, go ahead.
But like, if you look at his zip projection for this year is 305, 372, 489. Like, I don't think that's likely. 20 home runs. Like worth about 2.84.
Dan Zimborski.
But if you look at like his 20th percentile projection for Zips is 277, 343, 447. If you told me they were getting that, perfectly fine with that. With 16 home runs, OPS plus like 111, like I think that they're just their skills and it seems like they're pretty bullish. And it seems like even in the articles where like the Kylie McDaniel one that I was talking about earlier that was pretty down on him, like in that article, there were scouts and people saying like, we do think he can hit, like, and so like the bar is low. Like one WAR is worth what? It's like about 9 million now, 10 million.
Yeah, something like that.
So to get back that contract, he doesn't, or 8 to 10 million, whatever it is, he doesn't have to be like a star. He just has to be like an even if he's like an average regular, that's more than worth that contract. So I think it's, especially in what was a horrific outfield market for free agents, like what was it? He got 590, I think. Is that right?
590. Yep.
So a little under 20 a year. Like you're looking at like Mitch Haniger at 15 a year, like other guys like that. And once they missed out on those guys, they had to pivot somewhere. So
it's so weird.
Not even necessarily pivot, but they had to like, the outfield market was dwindling. They weren't going to get Nimmo. Like it's a good splash to take. I think it's a good risk. Like, and if you're confident in your evaluations, your scouts, your analytics department in identifying him as a potential regular, then I think it's more than worth it.
It's so weird. The Fangraphs board has him as a 35 plus future value while saying he's got a current 70 hit tool. That just doesn't track for me at all. Like, what are we doing here?
That is weird.
50 fielder with 45 speed, current 35, potential 40 game power with a 70 hit tool. That's not a 35 plus. What are we talking about here, guys?
That's weird.
That's at least a 45, probably a 50.
Yeah, that's weird.
That's strange. Maybe it's just an age thing because he's 28.
Yeah.
I don't know. He'll be 29 next year. Anyway, yeah, I mean, they had gone out, like you said, I mean, they had gone in and got him. They had signed Chris Martin days before. They had signed Kenley Jansen that day. We talked, I mean, the bullpen is in a good spot. IMO. I mean, now you've potentially freed up Houck for any number of things. I mean, Tanner Houck, I mean, they say they want to bring him in ready to start. I don't think there's any chance maybe he is. Maybe they think they're going to try him starting again. Who knows? I think it's more they want him ready for a long role if that's what they need out of him coming out of camp.
Yeah.
I also think that, I mean, Tanner Houck might be getting traded this offseason. I think they've got a lot of guys put it this way, if you can use Tanner Houck to combine him with a Dahlbeck and or Duran to get something useful, I'm all in on that. I don't know the chances of that, but I'd be all in on that. So I don't think it's a given that Tanner Houck is around come the spring, just because I just don't see I see where I like his role. I like his role as like the 6th, 7th inning guy in front of Martin and Jansen, which I'd love that as an 8-9. And Schreiber.
Yeah.
Which I think look, 2022 Schreiber is an 8th, 9th inning guy as well. I just don't want to rely on him doing that again. Right. And that's the best part about Martin and Jansen.
Well, yeah. And I think the things to me is it gives them defined roles, which is something they really lacked last year. And it
didn't have it all.
You never knew who was going to close on a given day. You never knew, like, if Schreiber wasn't available. Schreiber had to be kind of overused last year because they didn't have anyone they trusted in the late innings. Now you've got a defined closer who is going to be a 1-inning closer and pitch, just the 9th inning. Like that's, I think he threw more than 1 inning like 3 times last year. Like he's a 1-inning closer now. And you can quibble a little bit. Maybe they overpaid. Like it's a short-term deal. I don't really like. I just a 2-year deal to me, like great. Like I'd much rather have him than like the 4-year. What was it? I think Liam Hendricks last year got like 458, 468. Like
Yeah.
I'd much rather have Jansen on a 2-year deal.
And look, he might collapse, but the contract is not one that will submarine the franchise. Who cares?
No. And now you have Jansen, you have Chris Martin, who obviously was excellent after he went over the Dodgers last year. And I think the most important thing is he doesn't walk guys. And that was obviously a major issue with the bullpen last year.
He was literally the opposite end of the spectrum from Diekman. Right?
Yeah, I think he walked one guy after the Dodgers got him.
Yeah.
And so you have him now who could be a 7th, 8th inning guy. And I think he even closed a little bit for the Dodgers last year. I want to say in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Or maybe not in the playoffs, but he had some saves at some point in the last couple of seasons.
They had injuries, and Kimbrel was before, but not last year because they went and got
Kimbrel was bad. Kimbrel got yoinked last year from the pen from the closer role. But now Schreiber, he can be a 7th, 8th inning guy. Houck, if he's around, can be a 6th, 7th, 8th inning, whatever they want. They can deploy him whenever they want now.
Joely Rodriguez,
Joely Rodriguez, who is an interesting guy as their top lefty. Matt Barnes, if he's kind of back like he was at the end of last season, then maybe he's a solid middle reliever too. And then, you have Winkowski, Crawford as kind of your long guys. Like the bullpen makes a lot of sense now. And that doesn't include and that was, we just listed between those 6 guys, 7, 8 guys, like that we didn't even say like Brazier or Taylor in that mix. And if obviously we've set our pieces on like Brazier before, but if he's like the 13th guy on a pitching staff, whatever, that's fine. You know what I mean? I that wouldn't bother me. So I like the way the direction the bullpen is going. And I think that it gives them, they have a chance to get back to that being a strength. Whereas I feel like it's been a little bit of kind of a weakness for the last couple of seasons.
Anything else on the guys they brought in? Have we exhausted that?
I think the one thing I we didn't really talk about is, and I think is with the final to close the book on Bogaerts is, I think it needs to be discussed because I know people were asking me like, oh, how does this impact Devers? And I think that's been pretty clearly reported by multiple people that it's not going to have any impact. And
it's the same thing as the people who thought they were signing Jansen, who played with him on Team Netherlands in the World Baseball Classic. I'm like, yo, would you start a new job because they're like, hey, we just hired a guy you spent a month with 5 years ago? Like, no, stop it. Curacao and Aruba are right next to each other, but come on. But I also think now extending Devers is probably more important than anything else they do this offseason.
That's the thing is
doing something with Devers.
They have to make a decision on Devers. And I think that's the upcoming kind of that's the big thing that's going to loom over them until this is sorted one way or the other, is that you either have to extend Devers or trade him. You can't let him walk for just the whatever 4th round pick next year or whatever. You
4th or a 2nd if you get under. Yeah.
And the reason I think it's so important that you do one or the other and not just play it out and see what happens is the way baseball is going. Free agency is just going to keep getting worse and worse. And we're starting to see it because the younger guys are just signing these mega long extensions. And I feel like some teams have been super aggressive with it more so than others, like the Braves. The Mariners. The Braves are the pinnacle of it because they got these guys on these absurd contracts, like Acuna for 8 years with, whatever, 4 team options. Albies is what, $72 million for 12 years or something.
Nuts. It's nuts. Yeah. Well, I don't know if it's that, but it's crazy.
But anyway, they got Strider, they got Harris, they've got all their guys locked up. And in addition to being good business for those teams, it's just slowly taking guys off the free agent market who are going to hit it in 3, 4, 5, 6 years. And with every extension like that, the more there are. Julio Rodriguez,
hold on, I've got to interject. The Albies deal was 7 years at $35 million.
Oh, yikes! Oh, did it max out at 10.72 or something?
Well, no, it's because they bought out pre-free agent years.
Okay.
Plus 2 club options for $7 million each.
Jesus. Yeah.
Good God.
But that's absolutely insane. But like, even like you look at, I mean, obviously this is another Braves one, but like Austin Riley, like Aaron Ashby, like Yordan Alvarez obviously got his extension. Like, keep going, Brian Hayes, Jose Ramirez. I mean, Jose Ramirez isn't a good example, but like of the young guys, like Matt Olson, Wander Franco, like all these guys are signing extensions. And my point is that the free agent pool is just going to keep getting worse and worse as we
Wander
go further.
Franco hasn't done anything yet.
Yeah. And the further we go, you know, as we get more years into the future, these guys who, you know, you're projecting out when they debut that they will be in the, you know, the free agent class 7 years from when they debut, not going to be there anymore. And that's why I think to me, it makes it so important that you lock up Devers. And if I personally would go the lock up route, but if you're not going to do that, you got to trade him, because it's getting harder and harder to build through free agency. Like,
yeah,
the days I think of like what the Phillies have done, where they went out and got Schwarber, Castellanos, Harper, like Trey Turner. That's going to become harder and harder as there's more, and we're seeing it this year. There's fewer good players on the market. There's way more competition for them, and they're getting way more money than people projected. And I think that's just going to keep being the norm as revenues continue to increase. They have labor peace for the next, 3 years, whatever. I think, what was a 5-year deal?
4, I thought,
or whatever. There's next few years, there'll be a pretty consistent labor situation. TV deals are going to keep going up. Like, revenues are going up. Teams are going to be spending more. And that's, the Red Sox got caught in kind of no man's land in between the era where everyone got to free agency, and then you figured it out. And there were, a lot of people got extended after they hit free agency, and the era of what we're kind of in now, where everyone is signing their extensions in their pre-arb years. And they missed that boat with Betts. They missed it with Devers, and they missed it with Bogaerts. And they're paying the price for it now, where they obviously couldn't extend Betts, so they ended up having to trade him. They did extend Bogaerts, but they gave him that opt-out, which, and then didn't give him a suitable offer before then. And he ended up getting a mega bag, which it turns out he was right to not sign an extension.
Right.
And now they're in that situation with Devers where he has all the leverage. Like, if he tells them he wants $350 million, I don't know how they can say no to him. Like,
right.
Because he knows, and I'm assuming he knows this. Like, obviously they offered the Austin Riley deal, I think was reported, which is 10 years, about $212 million. That's not going to get it done.
No, like, not after this offseason.
No, like,
no chance. He's going to say close. Like, yeah, I'll try. I'll sign that if that's the best offer I've got next offseason. If we get another global pandemic or something.
I just
yeah,
I think that it's kind of put them in a position where they have to, like, if they're not going to extend Devers, like, we're going to know, I feel like, about Devers by the trade deadline next year, which way it's going. And either he's going to be traded before then or he will be extended, because I just don't think you can get to there and keep him and risk this situation repeating itself.
I think you need to know well before then.
Yeah, if you're going to trade him, Devers, you have more leverage now than you would in terms of a return now than you would at the trade deadline. And yeah, I mean, obviously, like, it sucks to entertain the idea of trading Rafael Devers, but I think if you're not, and I think with Devers, the final thing I want to say on it is, like, we're talking about that much money, I do think ownership is significantly involved in that too. Like, we don't know what the dynamic is there, whether it's like ownership and Chaim Bloom and the front office are on the same page there. They have differing opinions on values of him. Like, we don't know that. And it's hard to say, like, for all we know, like, Chaim Bloom could want to offer Devers, let's say $320 million over 12 years, and is being told, no, we can't do that. Like, we don't know what the situation is there. So I think it's going to be hard until, like, obviously that gets resolved to know, like, what are the dynamics at play here, and how much are the Red Sox willing to go? How much is Chaim Bloom comfortable offering extensions? Because I've seen a lot of people saying, like, he doesn't want to give out big contracts, running it like the Rays, like things like that, where, like, obviously the Story deal was $140 million. That's his biggest contract he's given out to date. Like, I wouldn't be surprised at all if he goes above that, and maybe we see it with Devers. But if we don't, I don't think that necessarily reflects that, like, maybe the front office might have been comfortable going there. If ownership doesn't want to do it, there's nothing you can do, like, at the end of the day.
Right. And there's only 30 of these jobs in baseball, by the way. So it's not a thing where it's like, if you don't like it, leave. It's like, well,
yeah.
So you want to run a baseball team, you got to play.
So
you
I
got to
just
work for
think
one of
that
the 30 teams.
the thing that I think is now has to be the number one priority, obviously, in addition to building the team for next year, is settling Rafael Devers' situation one way or the other.
No question. I just can't imagine though if you move Rafael Devers, the loss of goodwill. Not to go all sports talk radio here, but I think it needs to be looked at. Like Devers kind of has them over a barrel.
Well, that's what I was saying. His leverage, only increased with Bogaerts leaving. Like
yes. Like if they lose him, I mean, look, for everyone who says like, oh, the fans are going to leave, like they're not. Like this has happened before. Like anyone out there who was a Fred Lynn fan, who was a Carlton Fisk fan, who was, a Roger Clemens fan, who was a Nomar Garciaparra fan, like the fans come back if you build a winner.
Yeah, if they open the season next year 20-6, like it's going to be packed in June again.
Yep.
But I just think that after what happened with Betts and Bogaerts, figuring out the Devers situation has to be a priority.
Absolutely. We haven't even talked about the Rule 5 draft.
Oh, God.
That could be its own show. I meant to say when we opened the show, I don't know how long this recording is going. We might turn this into 2 episodes if it's long enough. Oh, man. Rule 5.
Yeah.
A lot happened.
Yeah.
It could have been its own episode if none of this had happened, and it could have been its own long episode.
That was wild. I mean, that was...
Yeah, I don't even know what to say here. It was the first time...
Well, we knew some of what was going to happen, and we were still, like, ended up being surprised. So that's, like...
I mean, okay, so big picture, the Red Sox lost 4 players in the Major League portion of the Rule 5 draft.
3.
Lost 3 in the Major League portion and 1 in the minor league portion.
Yes.
Of the Rule 5 draft. It's the first time they've lost 3 guys in the Major League portion, at least during the Sox prospects era of existence.
And I think it was tied for the most with the Dodgers
this year. Yeah, there were multiple teams that lost.
The Pirates lost 12 players between the major and minor league portion.
Yeah, they got their pockets picked, man.
I mean, they have a ton of guys in their org, which I kind of get it, but like, it was still kind of wild to see that number.
That was crazy. Although that said, like looking at like who the Red Sox lost in the minor league portion, who knows what that even means. But and the Red Sox made 2 selections in the minor league portion, including their annual selection from the New York Yankees, which until like 18 million other things happened, including in the Rule 5 draft, that would have been my favorite storyline of the day.
Yeah.
Anyway. In the Major League portion, Thaddeus Ward was selected first overall by the Washington Nationals. AJ Politi was the selection of the Baltimore Orioles with pick numbered 13. And the really weird one was Noah Song going to the Philadelphia Phillies.
Yeah.
Which came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And I guess let's stop with the Major League. We'll hold off on the minor league phase.
Yeah.
Let's just talk Major League phase for now because it's its own thing by far. Ward, you mentioned we knew some of the stuff that was going to happen.
Yeah, I knew he was going 1-1 for several days. And you can confirm this. And and
you said that.
I hinted at it on Twitter.
Yep.
I was told it was happening, and
not surprising at all.
No, it wasn't surprising at all. And
I think he's going to stick too.
It had happened at the time, like when he wasn't protected. A lot of people reached out to me asking, were very confused, and there were just a lot of other people in other orgs were very surprised by that decision. And I think that, it's reflected in the fact that he went first overall, that, the surprise was warranted. Like there was a lot of, he's a guy who I think the Nationals think can give them, good enough innings this year and talent wise warranted being the first overall selection. So it's going to be an interesting one to follow his development, because I think that's something that, the front office is going to, it's going to stick with them, the decision to not protect him and keep some of the other guys they did on the roster. Granted, I do know they have to remove a bunch of guys anyway, especially.
Well, that's what I wanted to,
And I think that's in the end, what it came down to is roster flexibility. We say like, oh, they kept, Caleb Ward over him or whatever, but like, we don't know if those guys are going to be on the roster by the time they make their, whatever, however X number of signings or transactions this offseason. So it's hard to, say exactly who took the potential spot that he could have had on the 40 man. But still, it stings when you lose a guy who I think is still talented and I think has a chance to pitch in the major leagues. And obviously is going to be this year. And I think if healthy and if we were able to see Ward next year, I think I could have, we could have gotten back to the point where I was projecting to be a 45 again. A borderline top, 12 to 12-ish, 13-ish guy in the system, potential swingman, relief type. And that's a valuable piece. And to lose that type of player for just $100,000 is tough. I mean, there's no way to kind of sugarcoat that.
It just to expand on a point that you were talking about, it's because I got all of the tweets of oh, well, at least we still have Ryan Brazier. Wait and see what the 40 man looks like in April, because they need to remove 2 guys from the current 40 man roster to get Jansen and Yoshida on. They're going to need to sign a shortstop. They better sign a shortstop. They're going
to have to sign a middle infielder in some capacity because
they have to get some kind of middle. Because oh, do you want to? Well, no, never mind. Let's not even acknowledge that nonsense. The Valdez thing, no. They need to get a middle infielder of some sort. They may get a DH. They may not. They probably need to get a starting pitcher. There's at least 5 guys coming off the 40 man that are on there now. You would rather lose a guy in the Rule 5 draft than on waivers, because on waivers, the other team can just option him. If you lose him in the Rule 5 draft, the other team cannot option him. If the Nationals, the problem with it being the Nationals that picked him is the Nationals can carry him all year. I'm down here in DC. I think at this point I'm going to be more surprised than not if he gets sent back, unless it means the stuff is just down. And they're just okay, yeah, never mind. This is not the guy we were hoping he would be. The stuff's just not there. Thanks, but no thanks. It's tough. Politi with the Orioles is interesting. I would throw maybe a 50-50 on him sticking, Ian. And I'm okay with losing him in Rule 5.
Yeah, no, he was
he's a middle reliever.
He's fungible. He's not a middle reliever. He's fungible relief depth to me. Middle reliever implies you can stick for a significant amount of time. To me,
he's gonna have to stick all year, but I could see him.
Well, no, and I think he can stick, but at the end of the day, he still has his warts. I'm not convinced he can stay healthy, especially with his delivery. He's hittable. And I think the biggest issue is he just gets murdered by lefties. There's significant platoon splits there, and yeah, it's going to be I think that he can be effective this year or going forward if deployed correctly, which is you limit his exposure to left-handed hitters, you keep him away from the middle of lineups. I think he's definitely an MLB quality arm, but I mean, I'm not convinced that he's a 8 to 10 year, surefire bullpen guy. I think, he might just be more a guy who sticks around, for 4 or 5 years at most. And even if he does that, regardless, just getting the big leagues, given where they took him, is a great result. But I don't think he is someone whose loss is going to hurt as much as potentially Ward could. I think Ward has significantly higher upside than he does.
Right. I guess before we get to Song, Ryan Fernandez does not get picked. We had heard a lot about that there was interest in him.
Yeah, I just think the medicals. It was too uncertain. Yeah. I mean, he ended the season with arm issues, and
that's gonna elbow inflammation is always, or forearm inflammation, whatever it was.
Elbow
inflammation. That's going to scare teams off.
Yeah, and I think that without having a clear picture of what that injury situation was, I think he got by it. I'm glad he did, because if healthy, his stuff is nasty, and if you dig deeper on his advanced metrics, things his in zone whiff rate, chase rate, he had some of the best stuff of any guys in the Rule 5 draft who were available. It's just the injury questions really clouded the chance to take him.
Other guys who were available, I don't think there was really anyone else we really thought that they would get, Wickelman, Gonzalez, Edinson, Paulino, as we talked about in our preview. Guys just don't really get, teams try it, but it's just the draft a guy who's in A ball and just stash him for a year and then send him back to A ball thing. It doesn't
say that, You say that, but they took a player was taken from the Red Sox who's never even played an A-ball.
Noah Song. You want to know hey, any news on Noah Song? I have Noah Song news for you.
This is the last time you hear about him on the
episode. Maybe not. I mean, no, who the hell knows? Yeah. So Noah Song was not protected. Let's start there. Well, no, let's start with what the Phillies can do, and then we'll double back to why the Red Sox didn't protect him.
Yeah.
So normal Rule 5 rules. You need to stay on the 40-man roster. You need to stay on the active roster as long as you are not hurt. Okay. If you are on the active roster for fewer than 90 days in the season which you are selected, so in this case, the 2023 season, you need to complete 90 days on the active roster before you can be optioned, including however many are on the roster for this year. Noah Song has not played organized baseball in 3 full seasons and counting, because we have no idea what the deal is with his waiver. He applied for a waiver last year. No news. I guarantee you the team has no news. Dave Dombrowski has no news. The Phillies have no news. Maybe they see this as selecting the player to find out, to be able to talk to the player and say, hey, what's the deal? Have you heard anything? Wait out the off season. And if there is nothing by opening day, you just send him back. Who knows? The Phillies can put Noah Song on the military list.
They already have.
They already have.
They announced it immediately after.
Oh, no kidding.
They literally announced the pick and it said, we have placed him on the military list, blah, blah, blah.
He is going to accrue MLB service time while on the military list once the season starts. Well, then you say that the Red Sox get their pockets picked. I don't think so, and here is why. First of all, the chances, independent of the Rule 5 draft, that Noah Song ever comes back and becomes a Major League Baseball player are already pretty slim, given that he missed 3 full seasons, right? Like, that's a lot. He might be coming back at 80 miles per hour with this fastball.
No, but even taking before that, he might not want to come back. We don't know.
Well, no, he wants to come back. He applied for the waiver.
But I think that
he has said he wants to play baseball.
Has he said okay?
Yes, that's why he applied for the waiver. He wouldn't have applied for the waiver if he didn't want to.
I don't know. No, because you can apply for the waiver. It gives you options. He doesn't mean he has to come back if the waiver is granted. Like,
but if he didn't want to, he wouldn't have bothered.
Like, I don't know. I disagree. Sure. I think if I was in his position and even if I was like, I would want to have the option. Like,
I guess. I mean, look, what he has said from day one is he wants to pursue his career in Major League Baseball, but he also wants to pursue his career.
Well, no, I agree with that, but he hasn't spoken publicly, as far as I understand, in like 3 years. So we don't know what his views are now. Right. Is all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying is like we don't know where his head is with it now. Like, maybe he's enjoyed his time in the military and he wants to continue to serve. Like, we don't know.
Sure.
Like,
sure.
That's all I'm saying is like it's not a guarantee that he even decides to come back to play. Like,
okay. So he goes on the military list. So there were already remote chances that he has a Major League career with the Red Sox. Now you have selected him. Noah Song is not going to get a rehab assignment. He's going to have to come back and pitch in Major League Baseball. He has to stay on the Major League roster for 90 days. The chances of a guy having not pitched in 3 and counting years and doing that successfully, to me, are so remote that I thought it was questionable to even take the chance. I've come off of that. I think I said on the day of it was a dick move by Dombrowski to even do that. I've come off of that a little bit. But the thing is, the fact that that the Red Sox got their pockets picked. This is like paying $100,000 for a scratch ticket. Because look, with the stuff that Noah Song showed in 2019, could he stick in the major leagues in a 1-inning role? Maybe. But the Phillies are a team that are trying to compete. This isn't like, again, the Washington Nationals, right? Like, this is a team that is trying to win now. This is a team that was just in the World Series. This isn't a team that can sit around and wait for him. So it's an enormous, it's not a risk on their part, because if your owner doesn't care about the 100 million, then sure, why not? Like, or 100,000, sorry. Then sure, but it's such a remote chance. As for why, if you are the Red Sox, you don't put him on. And again, well, let me just say this one more thing. Yes, he's accruing service time. By the time Song comes back, like I get not caring about the service time because by the time he hits free agency, he's going to be well into his 30s. And he's probably going to be a reliever anyway at this point. But with the Red Sox, like you don't put him on the 40-man and then military list him because why? The chances of him getting picked were so remote. Why start his clock? I get why they didn't do it either. So it is what it is. It's an interesting move by the Phillies. It is not one I would have made, but I don't know what you have to add to that, Ian. It was fascinating, weird. Who the heck knows what happens with it is kind of where I'm at. It's strange. But
I do think what you said about, like, I do wonder if they just end up basically just, if he's not ready to go by opening day, like
just send him back.
Yeah. Because I do think with the way, as you pointed out, with him having to go basically straight up to the big leagues, it's not like an injury. He's not like he's rehabbing Tommy John. They can build him up slowly.
And can I just interject real quick? Because a couple people were like, oh, he could always just strain his calf or something. Like, if the Phillies try and pull any of that, the Red Sox are going to be on that so fast and call BS. Like, there's no chance that flies at all. Like, if you're remembering Adam Stern in like the early aughts or the 90s or whenever that happened, like that is not going to fly in the year 2023. So sorry, continue. He has to come right up to MLB.
Yeah, no, that just, I think that like it's maybe something you could do. Maybe you could pull it off if he had the off season, then he was coming into camp. He has that full month to ramp up. You see what he looks like there. But other than that, like, it's I definitely, I think it's a stretch to say that like he could come up and pitch in a big league game after having never pitched above A ball and missing at least the last 3 seasons. Where
never pitched in full season.
And we have no idea like what his strength and conditioning programs have been like. We have no idea how like much he's been throwing. Like we just don't know any of these things. So,
which is to clarify what you said, because I know what you mean. It's not that he's out of shape. Obviously, he's in the military.
But there's a difference.
Is he doing baseball strength and conditioning?
There's a difference between baseball strength and conditioning and shape than they're like the other stuff. So,
like, is he on a shoulder program?
Exactly.
Like,
So, I mean, it's it's a very interesting move by Dombrowski. Obviously, he was in charge of the Red Sox when Noah Song was drafted.
Yeah.
So there's definitely some history there. And I think it will be very interesting to see kind of what comes out of this and where it turns out if he actually, they do have to end up trying to decide if they want to have him to the major league roster or not in season.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I saw tweets like Jared, I love Jared Carrabis, but like, tweeting that the Red Sox may have just lost their best pitching prospect. Like, again, he hadn't played baseball in 3 years.
Well, no, and I think the other thing is too that like, did he show the stuff in 2019 that he could have been their best pitching prospect right now? Sure, but if he was still pitching, like he would have been protected. So
right.
If he was on a normal development plan and pitching, he would have been protected. So yeah,
right. Minor league phase. The Red Sox lost Cameron Cannon. Whatever. Cannon was their top pick in 2019 as a second rounder because their first rounder got pushed back because they went over the third tier of the CBT in 2018. He was a backup this past year. I mean, I was stunned he got picked.
Other than that small season in.
Maybe they think that was the Phillies again too.
Well, yeah, he's Dombrowski. Dombrowski. He was that same 2019 draft.
Maybe they think they can fix him. I don't know. I mean, let's like Dombrowski has his guys from the system. Like he traded for CJ Chatham.
Yeah.
Like
another one of his draftees. Not his, but like he was there. I mean, he hasn't hit. He's hit. The only time he's hit in his Red Sox career was in 2021 in Greenville.
He's third and second base only at this point, primarily third.
And like, it's telling that he wasn't protected on the AAA reserve list because they had room to do it.
Yeah.
So it's just the way.
Granted, they probably have to sign a couple more minor league free agents, but
still, like
yeah.
I mean,
and they did make a couple of selections.
It's not a loss.
Yeah, they made a couple of selections. The first was Joe Jakes, Jacquees. They announced it. Apparently, it's pronounced Jakes from the Pirates system, a lefty, and who was in AAA last year, reliever. And then Ryan Miller, a reliever who is in high A in the Yankee system. Ian, you've got scouting reports on both. Why don't you give us a very quick rundown on the two of them?
Yeah, I think they actually have something both in common, and they're really good against left-handed hitters, and especially Jake's is the most interesting one to me. And it got me thinking, because if you do look, like, they don't have a lot of lefty relievers in the system or guys that can get out left-handers consistently. Like, if you look at our 2023 projected rosters, like we have Darwinzon, Mosqueda, and Jakes are the only guys in AAA, Double A's, like Brennan Nail and Salucci. Like, there's not a lot of depth there. And Jake's he crushes lefties. Like, I think they were 4 for 37 or something against him last year. I'm trying to bring it up right now. And if you see him pitch, you can see why. He's a side arming lefty who starts on the extreme first base side of the rubber and basically looks like he's throwing at lefties and comes across their body like that. They were 4 for 47 last year with a 257 OPS and a 38% strikeout percentage against him.
Is that good?
And he's like a low 90s, like 90, 92 guy with a slurvy, like, horizontal breaking ball that looks like it's in the zone, or looks like it's going to hit them and then catches the inside corner, or just, ends up completely off the plate. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if he pitched in the big leagues at some point. Like, he's the type of profile of a guy that, like, Bobby Pointer got up with the Red Sox. Like, this guy can have a moment in the major leagues if you can prove you can get consistently lefties out. It doesn't matter how old you are. Like, if you can get lefties out, you can make the big leagues. So I think that's a worthwhile minor league Rule 5 pick. Miller is a little bit of more of like a power pitcher. He's like, his fastball is like up into the mid 90s, I think like 94, 95 miles an hour. And he's like a breaking ball changeup guy, but he actually had significant reverse platoon splits, which was interesting too. And yeah, he's kind of like a late bloomer. He was originally selected at Clemson in the 6th round by Arizona as 2018 as a senior signed for, I think, like $25K or something, pitched a couple seasons, was released, went to indie ball, pitched an indie ball all of 2021, pitched a little bit to start last year. Then the Yankees signed him, came up, they put him in Hudson Valley, which is high A for them. He struck out a bunch of guys. He walked a good number of guys, and he gave up a ton of hard contact. But underlying metrics show like he can get whiffs in the zone, which is obviously a good sign. Very good against lefties. So I think there's just some things to work with there. And then maybe you can find, like, as they've done pretty well with their minor league Rule 5 guys in the past. So maybe they can find, turn him into someone who even could be like even if he turns into organizational depth, that's still a good outcome.
Turns into Caleb Ort.
Yeah.
That's, exactly. I mean, it's a freebie. So yeah, we'll see what those two become. Yeah, I mean, it's Flyers. For all we know, we won't hear from again. But I mean, they've made much better. You look at the draft history and some of the minor league Rule 5 picks in years long ago. Angelo Gomez, Andrew Schwab, Andy Ferguson, Luke Tendler, Harrison Cooney, Josh D. Smith, Johnny Polanco. Like, these are not guys that really did a whole lot. But in recent years, they've actually had some pretty good ones. Or Raynel Espinal pitched in Boston. Brian Keller last year was really good AAA depth. So we'll see what happens with these guys. Anything else, Ian? We've got a ton of emails. Matt Strom signed with the Phillies. Good for him. Franchi Cordero signed with the Baltimore Orioles. Good for split contract. Good for him. We should probably mention Ronaldo Hernandez cleared waivers, which opened a 40-man spot.
Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting that he cleared.
Yeah.
It just goes to show, like, nobody wanted to put him on their 40, Well,
I think it just shows that you're not going to carry your third catcher can't be a bat first guy who might not be a catcher.
Bat only guy, potentially, not even bat first.
Well, that's why I said he might not even be a catcher. That's just a very hard profile of a player to carry on your 40-man roster. And I think it just shows that the defensive limitations he has were just too much. And the fact that no one, I think it's good they were able to keep in the organization, because maybe, who knows, maybe you can get bad enough to get good enough, but not like
better enough is probably the word you're looking for.
Just not be
better enough.
Just get to a level that you can be comfortable at least throwing him out there in a major league game. But yeah, I wasn't too surprised about that. I would have guessed at some point, given how many guys they needed to add, his name would have been on in the consideration, and they passed him through at a good time. It was when teams were kind of preparing for the Rule 5 draft, they were starting to clear spots for their first free agent signings. So yeah, that was they got him through. So that's really what matters. He's not leaving New York, but yeah, I think it kind of shows where his standard is in the organization, though.
Mm-hmm. I think that's about it. The Red Sox also signed a minor league free agent, Norwith Gudino. We've got a report on the website. Go there and look at it. Let's get to your emails. Again, podcast@soxprospects.com. We want to talk about what you want to hear about. And we are already long, and some of these are just not as important given everything that happened this week. So we're going to punt on a few of these. So if we don't get to your question in this episode, we may in the future. The first one I want to do, Ian, is from Kenneth, who says, do you think the Red Sox or any other teams in a similar situation could be more willing to sign free agents with a qualifying offer attached if they make a big move in the lottery, with slot values being important also? Based on the 2021 slots moving, I guess the draft lottery was the other thing we should have mentioned. So this was actually really funny, Ian. So there were two so the Red Sox didn't actually have their pick move. They're picking 14th. The really crazy thing is A, how close they were to the first overall pick, and B, how close they were to moving up, because the Twins moved up from 13 to 5 or 6. 5? They moved up to 5. The Red Sox would have had the Twins numbers, but for a coin flip.
Some sort of tiebreaker. I don't know exactly.
Some sort of tiebreaker.
Because they had the same record last year.
So there's that piece of it. The other piece is that the way it worked, and JJ Cooper from BA reported on this. Yes, Fifi, agreed. Is that the teams had, so there were 4 ping pong balls that were picked for each team, and sorry, the cat's really fired up about this. 4 ping pong balls were picked. So there were combinations. So it was like the ping pong balls were from 1 to 14. If based on the combination of 4, there were like that many combinations of numbers anyway. That's how they were doing the odds and whatever. After the first 3 ping pong balls had been picked, and there's 14 ping pong balls that could be picked for the last one, the Red Sox, if 2 of the remaining ping pong balls would have been led to the Red Sox getting the pick, and the other 10 or if the other 12 were like,
no, it's 2 of 11 would have been the Red Sox. There were 11 left because it was 4. There's 14 in the lottery or something. I all I know is the odds were 2 and 11 because JJ Cooper clarified it on Twitter. But yeah,
so maybe it was they were 1 to picks from ping pong balls from 1 to 11. 2 of the ping pong balls would have been that set of 4 numbers were Red Sox numbers, and
it was the only team with multiple chances at it.
Everyone else, it was just 1 chance for a ping pong ball.
Yeah, so they had a 2 and 11, 1 in whatever 5.5 or chance.
Right. So the Red Sox didn't get the first overall pick because instead who got the first overall pick? The Twins?
No,
no,
Pirates.
Not the Twins. The Pirates. Thank you.
Yeah.
Because just thoughts and prayers with the Charrington family.
Yeah.
Rough week for them, but yeah. So they came very close to it, but in the end of the day, they wind up with the 14 pick still. So the question is, if teams move up based on 2021 slots, moving from 14 to 6 would mean the team gains $44,000 in slot value if they lose their second and fifth. A move from 14 to first is a gain of $2.8 million. This could enable them to possibly push a second rounder, like they did, into the third to pay over, like into the third round to pay over slot, or do something like they did with Brooks Brandon again. In other words, he's saying if you're getting more,
I think he's 100% right.
Money,
I think 100% right, because
100%,
because the only pick that moves up is your first round pick, but you do get that increased slot value. So let's say you're the Red Sox who were picking at 14, you're getting a top 6 slot, or the Twins are the best example because that actually happened. They went from picking 13th to 5th, they got that corresponding slot value increase. And then their other picks, like they lose their second round pick, it's a mid second round pick. They lose their 5th round pick, it's a mid 5th round pick. It's still got a decent, especially the second round pick has decent money, but the move from 13 to 5 is giving you more money than losing your second round pick. So yeah, no, it's definitely, I think it is a strategy. If you do move up, it probably makes it more palatable to get a QO free agent.
If you're the Twins and you miss out on Correa, I almost wonder if you pivot to Swanson. Like, does it make it more palatable? Because you're also not losing 2 picks like the Red Sox would because you didn't go over the CBT last year. So it's an interesting question. We appreciate the question, Kenneth. Our next question comes from, let's see. Okay, this is a free agency question from VLTC, who says the top Japanese arms available this offseason, Senga and Fujinami, have reported command and control concerns, respectively. With respect to the usual transition pains of a new country and a different mound, ball, and called strike zone, would you be more concerned for a big drop-off in MLB for the pitcher with great command control in MPB or one with spotty command control? On one hand, the former relies on comfort and repeatability, and the latter has little to lose. But on the other hand, the bad command control guy may be more likely to absolutely fall off a cliff. Or more concisely, which feature do you think makes an MPB pitcher a less risky transition, command control or stuff? Cheers. Do you have an answer? Because I think to me, it just depends on the guy. And part of it is you just don't know until they're here.
Right. I think that's the thing is it's so case specific, and we just don't know. Like, I've never seen these guys pitch. I'll be honest.
Right. Right.
It's hard for me to say, without seeing the guys come over. Cause like you look at someone like Robert Suarez or Nick Martinez, like those guys struggled here initially. They go over there, they come back, and they're both better here. Obviously Suarez still walks a ton of guys, but he misses a ton of bats. Like, it's just, and then you talk about the guys who come over from Japan who have played their whole career there. It's just it's so hard to say without having seen them or like
we'd be guessing.
Yeah,
I mean, we're guessing. I think that's all that we need. We don't know. Our next question comes from Nick. He says, I find myself fighting over what to think of Chaim Bloom so far. I was all in on his hiring, wanted to see better pitching development, fringe of roster improvements, and more creative trades and a more sustainable competitive team. I now look at some of the trades, and it doesn't seem like anything positive has come from that other than the Pivetta trade. Bringing in Jackie Bradley and more money plus prospects is all fine and good if you get players that can help. But it seems like they hurt the big league team, didn't help the farm system much, if any, and pushed them further over the tax threshold. You take that with the massive mistake of being a last place team being over the threshold, keeping JD, who doesn't even get a QO, rightfully so, to lose for nothing again, all while going over the tax seems close to a fireable offense in itself. So I guess my question would be, if he doesn't have some big hits this offseason with a very competitive team, is this going to be his last year? And most of what Nick mentions here in the email, we're going to talk about on a future episode. This is Nick in Idaho. Thanks for the email, Nick. I think it's a huge year for Bloom, and we've already said that.
I think we've said it's a very pivotal year. They finished this first year. They're in last place. It was a weird year. You kind of write that one off. Next year, they made it to the ALCS, had a 2-1 lead on the Astros. We saw how that went after that. And then obviously this year was bad. It was back into the basement, even though it's a deceiving, like they finished in last place, but like in most other divisions, they're not a last place team. It's just the AL East was very good. Because like you look, they're picking 14th. Like they were
a middle of the pack.
Yeah,
team,
they weren't. Yeah,
which is not good.
No,
but it's last place team is just. Yeah,
it's just a deceiving. Like
Anyway.
But anyway, yeah, I think it's a pivotal year, and I think that's why it's like this is a hard question to answer without seeing what the rest of the offseason build looks like, and frankly, like how things get going next year. Like, who knows? Like, obviously, I agree with you that I've liked some of the things I've liked a lot of the stuff he's done. There are definitely some things that I've questioned or not agreed with. I've done it on here, and we've talked about it before. The deadline, how they handled that, things like that. But it's just, yeah, the organization. I think the way I look at it is I think the minor league system is significantly improved from when he got it and from when they took over. That's trending in the right direction. The major league team is TBD.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
So,
and we need to see if any of the guys in the minor league system pan out, which it's trending. Well, again, we'll talk about this.
Yeah, but so it's going to be it's a pivotal year, and no question. That's all we
our next question, Ian, hits on another news item that we didn't talk about yet, which I think it's not as nearly as huge, but Michael writes in, he says, what is your reaction to the Portland Sea Dogs being purchased by Diamond Baseball Holdings? Which we hadn't talked about at all. So the Sea Dogs, I meant to look up their longtime owner passed away this past year. But at any rate, they got purchased this past week by Diamond Baseball Holdings, which, the founding president and general manager, died this past year, Charlie Eschbach. That's what it was. But so the team was sold, bought by one of these conglomerates that owns a number of teams. What's your reaction? I don't know. I don't know how this is going to work. What can I say about the Spinners? I am comfortable saying that with the Spinners, the change in ownership from the Webbers to Dave Heller, it's Dave, right? Heller. It certainly doesn't affect things on the field, because on field is the major league franchise, but off field, it did change a lot of stuff behind the scenes. I think I'll leave that there for now on the Spinners, not for the better. We don't know how the Diamond Baseball Holdings is going to run the Sea Dogs. You don't buy a higher end sort of minor league franchise like the Sea Dogs to kind of just milk them for profits, I don't think. But we'll see. I mean, you can't say anything until they come in.
So
I don't know if you've got thoughts.
So I think that, like, it's hard to say. Obviously, we don't personally know. Like, I've never interacted with this people or like any of the teams they operate, or they own and operate, but they are in charge of. They own 10 other teams, from what I understand, or from what I found, including AAA, Iowa, which is the Cubs, St. Louis, Memphis, the Yankees, Scranton.
And they're buying a bunch of teams, this offseason too.
They're buying like the entire like Braves system. Like, they own a lot of teams, and they're also owned by a private equity firm that has ownership stakes in a bunch of professional sports teams and Fanatics and things like that. So, I think that this seems like just a pretty legitimate, like, it's not like someone who's coming in like some other situations. This seems like a pretty well-backed group that obviously recognize. I mean, Portland's one of the best attended minor league teams in all of baseball, so it makes sense that they would be a popular one to own.
And it says the Sea Dogs are going to they're going to continue to have the same front office staff. So no, like, they're bringing everyone back. They're not like clearing
Which is
house,
key.
according to the press release.
Well, then that's good. Yeah.
So, I mean, again, we don't really know. It could be fine. It could just be something that happens behind the scenes. Our next email question comes from, let's see. Again, I'm trying to make these like timely ones given the number. Our friend Aaron Meta sent an email saying, I think this is about the Noah Song situation. I think this is just Dave Dombrowski getting revenge on you guys, knocking his handling of prospects and trades by going, quote, they're sick of Noah Song questions. I'll make them do a whole podcast on him, because Bogaerts had not happened yet. However, I would like to alert any Philly podcasters out there that I am now available at decent appearance rates. Thanks, Aaron, for the email. It made me chuckle, and Ian is now laughing with the mute button on. And Fifi thinks it's hilarious too in the background. Okay. Kurt says, longtime listener, first time questioner. Let's say we signed Dansby Swanson to, I don't know, the contract we offered Xander Bogaerts, 6/160. Numbers not important, just a point of reference. Let's say the first 3 years, the Red Sox pay $115 million of that. So after 3 years, there's $45 million left. 3 years into the deal, he is now tradable at 3 years and $45 million. And once he is traded under the new CBT, the team that gets him only gets a $15 million luxury tax hit on him. Is this a way to use your wallet in more creative ways than just buying prospects with bad contracts? It's an interesting thought, and I think he's right, Ian. The thing with Swanson is obviously there's the QO stuff. But
no, the AAV is flat, though.
No, the AAV for the Red Sox is flat. So what he's saying is you front load a contract such that after year 3, if you trade the player to the new team, it's kind of like what happened with Hosmer.
With Hosmer, you just don't know very much.
If you trade the player, now for the other team, he's only a $15 million a year player. So you pay up front.
But his AAV counts the same for that other team.
No, it doesn't. That's what I'm saying. Remember Hosmer? No, Hosmer. So the reason the Padres footed the entire bill for Hosmer is that by trading him, his AAV dropped by like $4 million, because it then resets to what it is. Because they did this as they did this to try and get teams to not have the loophole of like backloading contracts so that they don't pay it and they just trade it to another team who then pays all the money. But now it has kind of created the contract, the loophole of front loading a contract if a team wants to, where so for 3 years you pay 115 million. That's 38-ish million, which would be insane. Numbers don't really matter here, but you pay that to then be able to trade him later. But the AAV is still, based on 6/160. The thing is like, would a team do that? I could see like the Mets doing that. I just don't know how many other teams would, like the Mets and maybe the Dodgers. It's just, you would have to pay so much more up front. But yeah, you could certainly front load a contract. It's just the thing is with like inflation, time value of money, I don't know how many teams would do that. But that is a way you could flex financial muscle by paying more up front and then later having a guy be a more tradable asset. That said, like, if you're signing Dansby Swanson to a 6-year deal, I think you want Dansby Swanson for 6 years. Like, you don't want to trade him after 3. I mean, I guess the idea would be Marcelo Myers ready and you want to move Swanson for something else. I don't know. Let's see. Our next question is from Jake, who says, in the wake of Xander Bogaerts moving on, there's going to be an increased spotlight on Marcelo Myers' development. Obviously, he's an incredible talent, but after a year of being in the organization, I wanted to know if you guys had heard any reports about anything regarding his character or makeup. In spring training, some of the Red Sox beat reporters remarked that Meyer looked and carried himself like a big leaguer already in a good way. I'm just curious if there have continued to be good reports on this since. Also, from what you know, what kind of premium does the organization put on character and makeup when drafting and signing players? On the latter part first, if you talk to Paul Taboni for any kind of amount of time about the guys they draft, it's clear they value character and makeup. Go listen to the Taboni episode to refresh your recollection. Or if you haven't listened yet, go listen to it. He talks about it in a way that is very sincere. And he does that with every guy they pick. As for Meyer, I've heard nothing but great things about him. Yeah, there's no concerns there. I don't know if you
the makeup, he's like leader type, bilingual, like, he checks all the boxes when it comes to makeup.
Absolutely does. Next email is from Nick, who says, hey guys, there's starting to be chatter about the Red Sox trading from their middle infield prospect depth. I'm not sure they know what they have yet with Meyer, Romero, Paulino, York, Rafaela until more of them get to AA. But with Xander gone and the Meyer watch starting, and while I think he can be something between Brandon Crawford and Corey Seager, it will be at least 2 years. Does the loss of Xander Bogaerts change their approach to holding more of their middle infielders in case Marcelo Meyer does not come along like we hope? Nick, I would say definitely not. And you don't hold on to like Edinson, Paulino because Xander Bogaerts signed with another team.
Yeah,
if another team wants him for a player you want.
I don't think it has any impact on the middle infield guys for right now. Like,
especially,
I think it's, if you're gonna if you need to trade them, you trade them. If you don't, you keep them. Like, it's I think that they don't, like, I don't really think they have too much depth there, frankly. Like, they have interesting guys, but not in the sense that like they have to trade. It's not like they have like 3 top 100 shortstops close to big league ready to go.
Right.
Like, these guys are like, some of the guys you're talking about are like in their just finished their first season of full season ball. Like, there's plenty of time. There's not a logjam or anything they have to worry about right now.
Well, put it this way, right? Like, on the projected Greenville roster, we've got Meyer, Bonacy, and Paulino all in the lineup, right? And it's like, you could see them trading from maybe not Meyer, but like Bonacy and Paulino for another team that like wants him to play shortstop every day. If you're going to get a team that values him as a shortstop, that might be a good place to trade from, right? The Salem Red Sox projected roster has Mikey Romero, Abram Liendo, and Luis Ravello, who are all middle infielders. But that said, with the way they handle these guys now, like, yeah, Mikey Romero is going to play shortstop a decent amount, but he played a fair amount of second base last year too. They're going to rotate guys through and they're going to be okay with that, where like Mikey Romero in a given week might play shortstop twice, second twice, DH once, and sit a day. And that's fine in his first year of professional baseball. So I don't think they have pressure to trade from there. I think it's an area where they could trade from there. So yeah, but thanks for the question. But yeah, I don't think it's necessarily the case there. The next question is about FSG ownership. Yeah. So we've got a bunch of questions for next time, but if you want to send a question again, it's podcast@soxprospects.com. Hit us up. We want to talk about what you want to hear about. We've gone super long, so let's wrap this up. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for downloading the episode. Of course, support us on patreon.com/soxprospects. tell a friend, rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Amazon Prime, wherever it is that you listen. We want to shout out our $5 level Patreon supporters. Although first I should say follow us on Twitter and Instagram. You can follow the site at Sox Prospects. Follow me at SP Chris Hatfield. Ian's just on Twitter. You can follow him at Ian Cundall. That's IANCUNDALL. Thank you to our $5 level Patreon supporters. That's Deb Kendall, Andrew Wallen, Lendl Martin, Ernest Shermer, Kyle C., Tyler Woodrow, Jim Patton, New Hampshire, Jeff Trainer, David Nardone, Tim Harding, Bill Stanton, Evan Kirkwood, Chris Fox, James O'Hara, Nathan Kennan, Ben in Rhode Island, David B., Ben Burnett, oh God, Al Mendel. Am I still here? I'm still here. Good. Al Mendel, Kevin Catrides, Steve Gregory, James Bailey, Andreas Goldstrand, Corey Perrick, Forrest Perkins, Mark Herman, Brian Cowan, Andrew K., Jeff Harwood, Dusty G., Michael Murphy, Bob Intron, Pavel, Jordan Shabbat, Jeffrey Scruggs, Nicholas Duropoli, Mike Kawano, Chris Bollier, Curtis Waltman, Michael Stewart, Caleb Farron, John Kane, Andrew Stoneburner, Jason Parker, Mike Granger, Mike Mignosa, Jeff Richardson, Michael Cullen, John McGee, Nicholas Lenson, Paul Manish, James P. McMahon, Jim Tuttle, Adam Gregory, Brian Rose, Jake O'Donnell, John Mulqueen, and Gerardo Iantosca, Sean Guinan, Kyle Sanborn, and Matthew Ware. Thank you all for your support. We appreciate it. We'll be back at your eardrum soon with another episode. Thank you all for your patience while I dealt with my family issue, and we're back now. We'll be back at you soon. Thank you all. So that's on the table. I just screwed.